Okay. So today we are going to be talking about leveling up your formulas and functions, and we're going to have a look at a few more formulas. So we had a look at some last week, but we're going to have a look at a few more that might be of particular interest to those of you with research data. We will then have a look at some troubleshooting and investigating. So how do you go about solving issues that you're having with your formulas? And also, what do you do if somebody else hands you a spreadsheet and it's full of formulas and you want to be able to see what's going on with them? We'll have a look as well about how you go about learning more. So now you've got to this phase and this stage in your Excel formulas and functions journey. How do you continue on that journey, and how do you find out about more? Because there are last count, I think it's 253 formulas and functions within Excel, and they are actually expanding them. So I'm going to talk to you about 6 new ones that were launched just a couple of months ago, if you have 2016 or Office 365. And yeah, so we've got quite a bit to get through. So don't forget to ask any questions if you've got them. But for now, let's get started. I'll just turn my video off. Excellent. All right. Okay, so let's have a look at some of those formulas and functions that might be useful. I've got here a list of people, so I've got their names, I've got their ages, their sex, the employee ID. Now, one of the things that I might want to do from this is I might want to find out, say, the minimum age of a participant, the maximum age, and then I might also want to do a few averages as well, so mean and median and so on. So let's have a look at how to do that. So if I just say I want to find out the maximum age and want to say the minimum age, and we will go with the average as well. I just come in here. Remember, every formula starts with an equals, and if I start to type max, there we go, we find that we have got one that says max. Okay. So I can just double click on that. It says what numbers is it. I'm just going to select that whole column C, close my brackets and hit enter. There you go. So my oldest participant is 97 years old. Okay, let's look at the minimum. And guess what? If I just start typing min, I get there. I've got all sorts of things. So I've got minimum here. Okay, and I can do that. I can do that. And there you go. So 18 is the youngest. So how about my average? So again, I'm just going to type equals and I'm going to say av. Now I've got here a few different averages. The one I'm going to go for is one called average. You'll notice here that it says this returns the average. So it's the arithmetic mean. So this is the mean definition of average. I'm going to go in here. And again, I'm just going to select that column C. And let's see, what is the average age? Oh, there you go. That's quite an accurate number, 64.7632 years. Okay. Now let's say that I want to find the median instead, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. So I can come in here and I can say, I want the median. And I go, well, I'm not really all that sure how to find the median. So I'm going to hit this little FX button here. So I've got this insert function button, which is always on my formula bar, or I can go to my formulas tab and I can say insert function. It opens up the same dialog box. So here it's saying, do you want to search for something? So I'm going to say, well, what I'm trying to do is I want to find the median. Okay, and I can hit equals, and there we go. Look, there's a function called median. Who knew? There we are. So this is actually going to find the median one for me. So I'm going to say, okay, insert that for me. And it's saying, what is your number range here that you want? And again, I want that C, the whole of the column C. And I'm going to say, okay to that. And there we go. So the median age is 65. So that's just a couple that I thought that you might find useful. So you can see pretty much, I say there are hundreds of functions and formulas that you can use. So feel free to explore them. I'll have a little explore through some of these in a moment. But one of the things I wanted to show you is the Vlookup again, because that was the thing that got the most hits last time. That's the thing that was most popular. And I must say, we did a managing your research data, which is something we do in conjunction with the library. So we had one of those sessions and I decided to introduce Vlookup, and we got some pretty good feedback on that as well. People are quite excited, a few gasps in the room. So let's do Vlookup again. Here I've got some data. So from this data, this is just a list of everybody who came to training last year. By the way, these employee IDs aren't real. So this data has been anonymized. And if I just go down to the bottom of this, you'll see that I have got about 10,000 rows of data. So I've got 9,759 rows of data. I'm just going to go back to the top by coming into my box here and going A1, and that just takes me back up to the top. Okay. So here I've got their employee IDs. Now, people might have been to multiple training, because what I've not got in here is anybody's name. And people might have been to multiple training, but I might want to see what their name is. So here I've got an employee ID. And look, I happen to have that somewhere else as well. I've also got the employee ID here, where I've also got their names. For the purposes of this demonstration, people are called, their first name is person, and their second name is a number. Okay. So that's their names. And again, if I just go down to the bottom of this list, you'll see that I've got 3,380 different employee IDs. So I've got 3,379 different people. Okay. All right. So this time I'm just going to go up to 80, take me back to the top. So when I'm going to do a VLOOKUP, one of the things that you'll find really useful is if you name your ranges. So really important to name your ranges. And I'm going to demonstrate to you later, because I've got some demos to show you where the ranges have not been named, and you'll see how confusing it can get. So if I don't name this particular range, actually no, I will do, because I've got enough to demo later. So I have picked up that A1. I'm now going to use Control and Shift on my keyboard and the across arrow. Okay, so that's now selected all of those, and then I'm going to use the down arrow, and that just selects all of my contiguous data. Okay, so the Control and Shift. Control is what navigates you around. It's the Shift that actually means that you are selecting. Okay, so great little keyboard shortcuts there. I love those. And then I'm going to come up here into my name box. So where it says A1 here at the moment, this is my name box, and I'm just going to say, I'm just going to call this range of data, I'm going to call it people. I'm going to hit Enter. Okay, so that's my people. I can also name my ranges through my name manager, or I've got this define name where I can define a particular name. I've also got this create from selection. Okay, so this is how I could actually use that selection and create it as well. But I just find it easy to type into the name box. Important things about named ranges, they cannot have spaces in them. Okay, and you need to enter when you're finished. All right, so I've named my range. I'm now going to go to my bookings tab. I'm going to just insert in here, and I'm just going to type this is their name. I'm going to make that a little bit wider. Okay, now I'm just going to as well, let me make that a little bit wider. I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see my formulas. Okay, a little bit of feedback that I got was it was difficult to see the formulas, so I'm going to type that in here. Let me just as well hide a couple of these columns so we can see what's going on. All right, let's make this nice and wide so we can see what I'm typing. So I'm coming in here. I'm going to say I want to use a VLOOKUP, please, and VL gets me VLOOKUP. Okay. So I double click on that and it says, what do you want to look up? What is it that you want to look up? Well, I want to look up this. I want you to go off and find that employee ID somewhere for me. Okay. And then it's saying, well, where do you want me to find that? And this is where, if I hadn't named my range, I would then have to go off to the other tab and highlight all of that data. But because I named my range, I can now say, I can either use my F3 button, or on my formulas tab, I've got this use in formula. And this will show me all of the named ranges within my spreadsheet. So any named ranges that I've got, and people was the one that I've just used, so I can just say people. If you knew the name of it, you could just type people and it would know what you were doing. I always like to go and pick them though, just in case I've done some sort of typo or what have you. The next thing that I need to do is to give it the column index number. And what that means is, so in that range of data, the item I'm looking up, so this employee ID here, that item I'm looking up has to be in the first column. That has to be in column number 1 of the data range of my table array. And it's saying, okay, I'm going to go look that up in column 1 of your data array. And what would you like me to return? What would you like to appear in here? What column number is that appearing? So you may remember that that column number was column number 2. So I had employee ID, and right next to it, I had the person name. So if column number 1 is employee ID, then the person's name was in column number 2. And Ali's giggling at me because I am using my hands to demonstrate this, even though you can't see them. All right, so, but its column index is number 2. And then my final part of my VLOOKUP is actually, I don't have to use, but I tend to. And that is this true or false? Do I need an exact match or not? When I go, I put my comma in, it tells me, do you want an approximate match or do you want an exact match? If you don't put this in, it actually defaults to true, which means an approximate match. I want to use an exact match because I'm using numbers. And so I'm just going to go, I'm going to close that, and we're all going to keep our fingers crossed when I hit enter. Hey, there we go. So that's got my person there, and I'm just going to go double click, and that has copied that formula all the way down. Okay, so I now have everybody's names. Let's just make sure that this is working. So I've got here, what's this? 10033299, 103329, 103329, 103. 103, what was it? 1003, wasn't it? 1003. Okay, and now I'm going to have to go back. I've forgotten already. 10033299, 1033. I think Ali's writing that down for me right now. 003299. Okay, so we'll go there, and we'll find that this is person 2429. Can I have a drum roll, please? And there we go, we've got person 2429. It's always worth, by the way, just double checking a couple of values just to make sure that you've not made any mistakes. It's quite an easy one to make mistakes with. So also now we'll see that we've got that 2 there. So if I go to my person data, let me just get rid of that. I'll just clear that filter. So employee ID was column number 1 and person name was column number 2. If I wanted to return their age, I would change that VLOOKUP to be 3 and so on. Okay, so that's VLOOKUPs. All right, let's talk about troubleshooting then. I thought it was worth repeating that, but for now we'll just move on to troubleshooting formulas. If you've got any questions around VLOOKUP, you can put them in now. Okay. All right. So I've got some data here. I've got a few little errors. You'll see I've got some href errors here. I've also got some little triangles. Can you see that tiny little green triangle just there? So that tiny little green triangle means that it's not an error, but it's trying to tell me something. It's got a message. It's got a kind of a warning message. So I shouldn't ignore them because Excel is trying to be helpful. One of the first things that it's useful to do when you're working with a new spreadsheet or you're trying to troubleshoot is to have a look at all of the formulas. So if I go to my data tab, my formulas tab now, you'll see here I've got this button that says show formulas, and you'll notice when I hover over it, it's the control tilde. So that was that control. On a normal keyboard, the tilde is above your tab. I'm on a laptop at the moment, so my tilde is actually between the Alt and the Control keys on the right hand side of my keyboard. Okay, or I can just press this button here. So we can see I've got some VLOOKUPs here. I've got a whole bunch of VLOOKUPs. I've got a sum and so on. So that's a really easy way of seeing where have I got formulas and where have I not got formulas, is just to show them. And I can hide that again, and it shows me the results of the formulas instead. Okay. So this formulas tab is really handy because it has got all of these things like my formula auditing, which we're going to have a look at. It's also got the watch window, which we'll look at. It's also got things like here at calculate options. By default, Excel is set up to do your calculations of your formulas instantaneously. So as soon as you put in a formula, it does the calculation. If you've got huge data sets and you've got very complex formulas and you've got a big stuff, and if you find that it's taking, that your Excel spreadsheet starts to get grindy, you know, and things are taking a long time, then what you can do is you can change it to be a manual, and then you just press the calculate now or calculate an individual sheet. And that can just help you if you're working with really large data sets and if it's struggling to do your calculations all the time. Okay. All right. Just having a quick look at this function table before I get into this formula auditing. You'll see here you've got your auto sum, and here is some of those really average, those really average, sorry, say what you see, Lucy, say what you see. Here are some that are quite common. So we've got sum, we've got average, we've got count numbers, we've got maximum, minimum, and so on. We've got my recently used, so any ones that you have used recently. So yeah, what a surprise, I've got if there, I've got concatenate and so on. Oh, Vlookup doesn't appear there, that's interesting. I've then got financial ones, which probably you guys won't be using a lot, but these ones are used a lot in the finance world, okay, particularly in banking. We've got logical ones, so that's the and, the if error, if not applicable, false, not, or. So and or can be really useful, but these are the logical ones. We've got text ones, which is where we'll find things like concatenate and clean, substitute, and so on. So we've got quite a lot of those ones, text ones. We've got date and time ones. All sorts of things we can do, like we can make sure that we're only using weekdays, we can add week numbers in, all these sorts of things. So lots of those there. Lookup and reference, so this is where we've got things like you've got your VLOOKUP. There is also an H lookup that does horizontal lookups, but most tables I found are, most table arrays are set up in a VLOOKUP kind of way rather than an H lookup kind of way. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. You've got maths and trigonometry, so any of these, as you can see, hundreds and hundreds of them here. And then we've got the more ones. So probably what you guys would be interested in is some of these statistical ones. So under the more, you will find your statistical ones, and you've got, yeah, all of these kinds of working out standard deviations and all these sorts of things. So you've got standard deviation, PS8, like I don't know, I don't do stats, so I don't really understand what any of those mean, but I'm sure you guys would. And we'll have a look a little bit later about how you can do this thing where you say, tell me more, and it will do just that. Okay, all right. So that's a little explore around some of those. But now let's get on to having a look at how we fix problems, or how we see what's going on. So when we go to say, all right, I want you to show me the formulas, it's reasonably helpful to see where the formulas are, but some of them you might go, well, actually, that's a little bit, I need to look at more detail at that one. So I'm just going to hide my show formulas. And it may be that I want to say, all right, I've got this here. What's dependent on this? So this thing here, what is actually dependent on this being right? So I can click on this button here that says trace dependence. And I just keep clicking, and I keep clicking, and I keep clicking until it beeps at me. So once it beeps, once I get that ding message, that means that it's finished looking at dependence. And if I keep clicking it, yeah, it's just going to keep dinging. But I can see now everywhere that is dependent on this particular formula. Okay, these will print while they're being displayed as well. So if you wanted to print this out and have a little look at it, then you can do. And to remove these arrows, I can either go click on the little drop down, and I can remove the dependent arrows one by one, or I can just click that and it will disappear them all at once. So it depends whether you want to step them up or step them down. Okay. And of course, we can also do that. So that was for dependence. We can also do that for precedence as well. So if I come somewhere like I'm looking down here, and I go, where's that coming from? So where's this number coming from? So I can come up and I can say, okay, I can see where that's coming from. Look, and I just keep going until it dings at me. Now you'll notice here that I've got these blue arrows and I've got these little black arrows. The black arrows tells me that it's looking at information either in a different workbook or a different worksheet within this workbook. So I can actually find this out. I can say, okay, so where is this 3398? Where is that coming from? Where is this going? And I can double click on this little arrow here. So I double clicked on the arrow, it opens up my go-to box, and it's already saying to me, hey, go to this other place. I'm going to say, okay. And there we go. It's taken me to where that information is stored. So it's stored in this prices place here. Okay. I can go back to orders. All right. And that really is a great way to trace information backwards to see where it's coming from. But I think this is also a great demonstration of why you want to name your ranges. Because if I come and have a look at this formula, you can see how this just looks overly complicated. Okay, because it's saying you want to go and look in this lookup table here, and you want to go to lookup tables tab. So there's an exclamation mark there, and that's to do with it being a lookup table. I'll tell you what, why don't I just show formulas and just make that nice and bright, and I'll just remove the arrows for now. So it's the fact that it says lookup tables exclamation mark, so that exclamation mark is what's telling it you need to go and look at this tab that's called lookup tables, okay? And then it's got the range, that A3 to B10. Now, if instead, you remember from my other one where I was looking at this bookings here, and when I go to look at, hang on, and I show the formula here, you can see that I have got, let me just move it along here. Okay, you can see here that I've got, it just says people. So I've got L2 and then it says people. So it's much easier for me to understand what people means. And if I want to look at at people, I can just come here and I can go, well, hang on, okay, there's a thing called people, and it takes me there to have a look at it. So that's it just really helps you if you name your ranges. Can't stress that enough. I may have gone on about that a little bit already, so sorry about that. Okay, all right, so I'll hide the formulas again. All right, now there's another thing that you can do if I want to see the precedence across my entire spreadsheet. So this is a little bit of a trick for you. If I come into a blank cell, so if I go to a cell anywhere within my spreadsheet and I just type the equal sign, so it tells that I'm going to be writing a formula or looking at arranged, then I'm going to click this grey triangle up here. So this square here is a way to select the entire worksheet. Okay, so this sheet, not the book, just this particular sheet. And I click on that and it selects it. So I've now got the range there. Okay, I'm just going to hit enter on that and it says, oh, okay, I'm a bit freaked out by what you're trying to do. But don't worry about that error message. Then I just select that. And if I select that, essentially what I'm doing is I'm selecting the entire range. And if I now say, I want you to trace, precedence, it shows you all the precedents in the entire workbook, in the entire worksheet. Okay. Now, because this data is quite dense, there's a lot of things going on here that could look a little bit confusing. But if you've got a big worksheet and you're really not sure where things are coming from and you just want to get a picture, is there a lot of dependencies here or not, then it can help with that. Okay. So just a wee tip for you there. Okay. Now, what I want to look at next is these green triangles that are designed to help. So I've got this green triangle here, and you see that I then get this little thing here. So I get this little exclamation point, and it's telling me when I hover over it, it actually says the formula in this cell differs from the formulas in this area of the spreadsheet. As well, if I click on the drop down, it tells me this is an inconsistent formula. Okay, so it's just saying to me this formula is different to your other formulas. Okay. So what I might want to do is have a look at it, and I can see here that it's C7 times D11. That sounds a bit weird. So again, if I just hit escape and let's just have a look at tracing the precedence for this one. Oh, that's a bit odd, isn't it? That it's got the price of each and it's timesing it by the quantity of something else. That seems a little silly. So what I can do here is I can say, yeah, just copy the formula from above, thanks. So Excel is trying to help me fix this one. It said, this is different to the formulas in this column. Would you like me to just make it the same as the formulas in this column? And I go, yeah, please do that. And there we go. We've now got a far more sensible. There we go. That's what we were expecting. Because if we go and look at the precedents from the other cells, we can see that that's what we wanted. Okay. All right. Where else do I have problems? I've got a little problem here. So I'm going to look at this one and say, this is an invalid cell reference error. I wonder what that means. So I'm going to come in here and say, this is an invalid cell reference. That's interesting. I can see my cell references up here. So again, I'm going to just say, well, let's trace the precedence. Oh, this is interesting. So it's going off to another sheet. Let's go and have a look at what's happening on that other sheet there. So I'm going to say, yep. With that, go there, thank you very much. Okay, so that looks all right. So let's just trace some more precedents. Okay, let's go and have a look at this precedent here. What's going on with this one? I can come in here and I go, okay, that looks all right. So what's going on with this? Okay, so I've got A1 to A14. We're doing a VLOOKUP. Let's step through it. Let's have a look. That's the lookup value. That's the table array. Column index number, hang on, column index number 3. When I come back here, there are only 2 columns. So let's see if I come in, oops, let me just escape out of there. If I come in here and I say, make that column number 2 instead, and then hit enter, that fixes that one for me. Okay, so that's fixed that one, and that has also fixed all these other ones. So these other ones that were broken because that one was broken. And that's because they are all, if we come back here and we look at the dependents, they are all dependent on it. Okay. Let's remove arrows. Let me remove that just so I'm not confusing anybody. So if I come in here and again I say trace dependence, so all those error messages were because of that one error. So what you want to do is make sure that you're fixing the error if it's an error at the top. So when I come to, let me remove the arrows. When I come to here and I go trace precedence, I would have been able to see that that had a precedent of this one here. So that was probably what was causing that error there. Okay. All right. So that's the tracing errors. So that's pretty useful, those little ones. Don't ignore if Excel is showing you a green triangle, it's doing it for a reason and it's trying to be helpful. So please let it try to be helpful. Okay, let's have a look at evaluating our formula now. So I'm going to remove that. Okay, so this one can be quite useful as well. I'm going to come into this one here. And I'm going to do this evaluate formula. I'm going to show this to you now. I'm going to show this to you later as well so you can get what's happening. So this is about evaluating a formula. So I can see here I've got this formula is C5 times D5. So that's the formula there. And I can say, well, can you evaluate that for me? And what it does is it actually now gives me the results. So the one that's in italics is the one that it has just given me the results for. And I've also got a D5 here. And I say, well, evaluate that one. And it's saying I'm going to do a times 10. And then I say, well, evaluate that, and it gives me what the result will be. Okay. I can click on restart. You'll notice I've also got this step in. So I can say, okay, so it's C5, but let's step into C5. So now what it's doing is it's going and it's showing me the formula for C5. Okay. So it's saying this is what we've got for C5, and I can go, okay, right, so it's going off there. You see how, wouldn't it be so much easier if these ranges were named and I could actually see what table it was looking at? Anyway, I can step in again, and this time it's looking into the B5, so I can see where it's getting that data from. So I can step in and step out, and I can also do that evaluate and restart. So this evaluate formula is particularly when you're working with complex stuff, you're just trying to get your head around somebody else's stuff. It's really good, and I'll show you this again later because one of the things it can do is it can solve it bit by bit. So as you're trying to get your head around stuff, it can say to you, okay, well this particular part of the formula returns this value, and that can then help you understand the rest of the formula. All right. Okay, I'm just going to go to a different tab here. So I've got a different tab here. And again, you'll notice that I've got some little green. So we've got these little green errors. So this time I'm going to use my error checking here. So I'm going to click on error checking. Okay, and this is saying to me, you've got an error in H7. So it's got this one here. You've got an error in here. It's an inconsistent formula. The formula in this cell differs from the formulas in the area of this spreadsheet. So I can just say, okay, great, copy it from. Wonderful. And it takes me to the next error. So rather than me having to go look for those green triangles, this actually helps me. And this says there is an error. It is a sum 3 to 8. It's an inconsistent formula. The formula in this cell differs from the formulas in this area of the spreadsheet. And this time it's saying copy the formula from the left. So I'm just going to take its advice. I say, yeah, that's great. This one here is telling me again, I've got an error and it's a total and it's unprotected. So what it's saying is that I could just come in here and type anything I wanted in here. But what you might want to do is actually protect this cell so people can't type things in it by mistake. So I'm just going to say, yeah, okay, lock that cell. Excellent. What have I got here? I've got a div over 0, and you always get that if you've tried to divide by 0. So I'm going, okay, the error in this cell is trying to divide H15 by H20. And this is a divide by error. So if I look at H15, so it's trying to divide H15 here by H20. Oh, H20 is a blank cell. That's a bit dumb, isn't it? So what I want to do now is I'm just going to close out of here, and I'm going to investigate. So what happened in the cell above? In the cell above, I have got, because what this is all about is this particular formula is about finding out a percentage of total. So I've got here, again, let me trace the precedence of this one. So it's saying, oh, the total cost, and so it's this one divided by the total. Well, that makes sense. Let me now move on to my next one and trace the precedence. Ah, I see what's happened here. What's happened here is that when I have copied this formula down, I did not use absolute cell references. Do you remember last time we talked about absolute cell references? So as I move the formula down, it's moving both these cell references, and I don't want it to. This one, this H19, I want it to stay the same. I want to make this an absolute cell reference. And to do that, she stares into space for a little while she thinks, hey, that's the one, F4. So I can use F4, that's the keyboard shortcut, and if I keep pressing F4, it cycles through the different options that I have. Okay, so that's H19, that's just a relative cell reference. That's my absolute cell reference, so it will always look at H and it will always look at 19. If I press it again this time, it will always look at 19, and it will change which column it's looking at, so whether it's looking at H or not. And if I press it again, then I get, this time it will always look at H, but it will change the row, so it will change, that 19 will change. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to hit enter, and now I'm going to copy this formula down. Ta-da! And that fixes that one. Okay. All right. So with my formula auditing, there's one more thing to show you, which is this watch window here. Now the watch window is a really handy way to see how changes you make affect other cells. So that's what the watch window is all about, saying it's a bit how you can do some sort of what-if analysis and so on, is you can go and you can make changes to things and you can see how that affects other parts of your workbook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into where am I going to go? I'm going to go into my order sheet here, and I'm going to open up my watch window, and I'm going to add a watch, and it's going, what do you want to add? That's not the one I want to add. I want to add in, no, actually I'm going to add in these ones here. Okay, I'm going to say, okay. All right, so those have now been added to my watch window. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch of stuff in here. Oh, I've added a whole bunch of things. There we go. Okay, if I want to, I can come in here and I can also delete the watches. Okay, so there's all sorts of things that I can do. So the Sports City one, I don't want those in there anymore, so I can just delete those ones, and I'm just doing this World of Sports one here. Okay, now the advantage of the watch window is that's going to stay on top. So now I'm going to go into my lookup tables, and I'm going to make some changes to the prices of things. So this one here, it's looking at this ST2472, so this 63.99 here. So let's say that I change that 63.99 to 200. So let's say I change that to 200. Can you see on the watch window how that made a difference? So if I just do Control Z, it's going to undo that, and Control Y will redo it. So the watch window just allows you to see, in as many cells as you want, how a change you make is going to affect other parts of your spreadsheet. So that can be really, really handy. So that's troubleshooting and investigating, and just generally trying to get familiar with your spreadsheet, and particularly if it's somebody else's spreadsheet. Okay, all right. I'm now going to move on to about how do you go about learning more. So how are we going to learn more stuff? So I'm just going to open up a new tab in here, and I'll just zoom it in a little bit so you can see what's going on. And one of the best ways is to use the help. Okay, so the help for formulas and functions is actually really good. So if I come into here and I say that I want to do a lookup and reference, and I'm looking at the Vlookup here, and I say to it, tell me more. That Vlookup thing that Lucy did, I kind of got it, but I was a bit confused by it. And so it's going to come in here. Okay, that's interesting. It's not done what I expected it to do. So instead I'm going to come through here, and I'm going to say I want to find my Vlookup. and I can say help on this function. And it's connecting. Here we go. So there is a little video here I could watch, but what I really wanted to show you was I can scroll down here and it's explaining it to me, but I'm a bit of a doer. I learn by doing. So it's got here an example for me and it says, hey, why don't you grab this stuff and copy it into a spreadsheet? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go Control C and I'm going to come in here. I'm going to just get rid of that and I'm going to Control V. Oh, and it's going to have a little think about it. There we go. All right. So with all of those selected, let's just move that across. Okay, it's decided not to do that for me. All right, I'll just select these ones and we can see what's going on. Okay, so I've copied my data in from that help. And now I should as well. What have I done with my help? Oh, it's disappeared. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go with my formula, and again I'm going to go for my Vlookup, and I'm going to say help on this function, and here it is. So now I've copied across my data. It's got now some formulas that I can copy across and some descriptions of them as well. So again, I'm going to get all this stuff and I'm going to try and scroll down and I'm going to Control C to copy that. I'm going to come across to here and I'm going to say Control V, and again I'm just going to paste that one in. Okay. All right. Okay, so here we've got the descriptions and we've got the formulas. Let's just make the ID a little bit smaller. And the first name and last name and so on, so you can actually see what I'm doing, and we will cool. All right, so what this helps me do is it explains what the formulas are. So I can come in here and I can look, there's the formula there, and what this is doing is it's saying to me, it looks for the value Fontana in the first column, column B of the table, row B2 to B7. I can say, oh, I see, it's saying it's looking for Fontana in B2 to B7. Okay, and then it's found in the second column. What's found in this column C? Oh yes, I can see it's now looking for the column C, and it's false because it wants it to be an exact match. So I can now see what's going on with that, and if I wanted to, I could start playing with this formula. So it's just a way for you to explore the different ways that this can be used. Okay, so then I've got some things here, and we've got some lookup values, and that's another lookup over there. But one of these ones that is interesting is this also shows, it introduces me to new formulas, because look here, oh, this has got an int, so that's returning an integer. It's got a year fraction, so that's how you can take one date away from another. It's got, this is the current year, this is the fiscal year, so it's looking for somebody's age. And so it's going and it's doing a VLOOKUP. So it's nesting. This is what we call nesting a formula, so it's doing lots of nesting. So the VLOOKUP is going to look up this date, and then we've got the date, so it's also got a date range in there. It's got a year fraction, so it's saying take this date away from this, take this date away from this date, and that's going to give me a fraction, and then it's going to say, okay, and just make that an integer. So just make that a number for me, which is how we get this 59. So that's quite interesting. And this is one of those ones where we might want to, if we go in and we say evaluate the formula, and we can say, I want to evaluate, so I've got this date here, so I want to evaluate that. And then I want to evaluate that VLOOKUP, so that's showing me that one as well. And I want to evaluate, and it's doing the integer, and I want you to evaluate, and that's how it got to 59. Let me show you that in another one here. This one's quite good. So this is an if nested. Oh, okay. So if, and then we've got an is not applicable, and we've got a VLOOKUP, and we've got an equals true, employee not found, and we've got another VLOOKUP. Oh my word, what on earth is going on here? Let's evaluate it. So what it's going to do is do a VLOOKUP here. I can evaluate that, and it just tells me what the answer to that formula will be. Okay, so the answer to that formula will be that. I go, okay, evaluate the next bit. So if it's not applicable, is it false or it's true? So it's false, and I can look up the next one. Employee not found, so it's false. Employee not found, and then what's my final lookup? So if something is false, then put in not applicable. If it's true, put in Burke, and I can evaluate that and find that I get Burke. I'm just going to let that one sit there for a moment while you all take that one in. All right. Okay, so another thing that I can do with my form, actually not with my formula help, I'm just going to hit F1 to open up help altogether. So there's my Excel help. So I'm going to look at, so we've just talked about nested formulas. So I'm going to talk about nested if. I'm going to do a searching on this because ifs are really common. Okay. Okay. So ifs are very, very common, and I've got this one here, if function, nested formulas and avoiding pitfalls. So let's just have a look at what Excel is trying to tell us about this stuff. So again, I'm just going to see if I can zoom in on this. So this just goes through and it shows us lots of different examples. I can't copy and paste this one in, but one of the things I wanted to show you here is look how complex your if formula might get. That is how complicated an if formula might get with using nested ifs. And one of the things I wanted to show you in this example is this is lots of if statements here, and they've got it sitting, rather than all sitting like that in a big long string, they've got it sitting that each nested if statement sits on its own line, and it just helps you to interpret. So how did they do that? Well, it's actually reasonably straightforward. Is I can come in here. First of all, I can expand this formula bar. So this formula bar can be as big or as small as you want it to be, okay? So you can make this pretty big. And all they've done is they've come in and they've gone where they found a new formula, they have hit the Alt-Enter. So Alt-Enter is how you make a line break within a cell within Excel. Okay, so that could be quite handy for text as well, but that Alt-Enter is how you put that non-breaking space in there. Okay, so then I might want to come here and go, right, I want to put another break in there. So that's how they've done that. So this is another thing, and I go, oh, look, there's another set of brackets. So that one I can put an Alt-Enter. It just helps you to sort of divide up in a logical way so it's easier to interpret what's actually going on. That's much easier to see. Okay, but one of the other things I wanted to show you in this help is, again, this can get quite complex. So we've got another one there. Just remember, it has to, all the brackets have to close. And you can also, they're also suggesting that actually the way you could handle this is doing a VLOOKUP instead, which is absolutely true. Is you could put these, all of these if value, all these things you're trying to evaluate, you could actually put them in their own table and then do a VLOOKUP instead. Okay, way easier, way easier. But there is another thing that they're talking about here. Did you know there is now an ifs function, which leads me neatly on to some of these new functions that are available. Now, these are available if you're using 2016, but these are pretty cool. To say they are actually releasing new functions all the time. So one way to keep on top of things too is to come, this is from the Office blogs. The Office blogs I subscribe to and I go and read every now and again. I got very excited. I saw one today all about Power BI, which was very exciting. Anyway, we've got combined text strings, so text join concat. So concatenate, we looked at concatenate last time, and remember that we've got this concatenate here. So if I want to put a comma between things, I had to then do a comma, put that comma in quotation marks, and then put my next string in, and then and so on. Now there's a new formula called text join, and with text join, I just say, okay, I need you to put between all of these things I want you to join up, you do actually need to put in a comma for me and a space. So they've got an example here where what they're wanting to do is concatenate an address, but because they want to have a comma and a space between each, as you can see, these results are here. They need to do a concatenate and all this sort of stuff. But with text join, you just do text join and tell it what you want it to join it with. Tell me that's true, and then just pick your data range. I think that's pretty cool. And then we've got ifs and switch. So ifs allows you to do, rather than doing all of that, you just kind of, rather than doing this, rather than you only being able to look at is this true or is this false, you can say if this thing is true, do this. 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 So you don't have to nest anymore. Okay, so we've got some stuff here, and yeah, it's just showing you how much simpler that would be, okay? So with if, you would have to, with an if statement, you have to do all this nesting, like this kind of thing here. Whereas with an ifs, so it's an if with an s in the end, you can say, if this is true, put an A in. If this is true, put B in. If this is true, put C in. If this is true, put D in. If this is true, put fail. So that would be, because you've got so many there, you would actually need to, I think that would be 5 nested if statements, which can get quite complicated. So if I find that pretty exciting. Okay, so that brings me to the end of what it is that I wanted to show you today. So that has been our formulas and functions level up. I hope you have found that useful. I'm just going to do a quick poll because I would like to know if that was useful or not. So please just vote in that poll that will appear on the screen for you now. Just to remind you that this will go up onto YouTube before the end of the day, if there's anything you'd like to look at again, and our upcoming topics. So our next one, which is the 3 o'clock on Friday in 2 weeks' time, is avoiding death by PowerPoint. So how to make your PowerPoint more effective. And then after that, we are doing one on MS Project. So the 5 things you need to know. So if you are using Project at all, even just a little bit, you really need to know these things. So do come along to that one as well. Okay, so I think I'll just wait and see if you have any questions. We'll give that poll another 10 seconds or so to run. So if you could just vote in that for me, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to end that poll. Thank you very much. So it does seem that people found that pretty useful, which is great. I'm glad to hear it. Okay, so I'll just wait and see if you are typing a question right now. Please just raise your hand so I know not to finish the session. And I will just finish off by saying that is our email address there, it.training@adelaide.edu.au. So if you do have any requests or any suggestions for what we can do in these webinars, or any other way that you would like to increase your knowledge of any of the Microsoft Office products, then please let us know. We are always happy to hear some feedback. But it looks like nobody's got any questions. I'll give you another 30 seconds to raise your hand in case you have a question. But other than that, we will draw this webinar to a close. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.